Hey folks, it's us, podcasting wonderkins John Bishop and Lucas Southworth.
Although this is a podcast about cars, it is not age appropriate for the target demographic of these films, as we usually end up talking about the reproductive organs of Lightning McQueen.
Alright, now let's take a look under the hood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chat. It's the only podcast brave enough to ask the question, hey, what's up with cars? I'm Lucas Southworth.
And I'm John Bishop.
What's wrong, bud? You did a big sigh.
Well, we're talking about something I'm so good at today.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm not sorry. You know, when you remember when people used to say they were sorry that they weren't sorry, but they weren't sorry that they weren't sorry that they weren't sorry? It's like that. I'm saying I don't care. We've decided we're going to do it. I don't care about your fake angst for the show.
Okay.
John, what are we talking about that you're angsty about?
Well, today we're talking about history?
Yes, because I can't stop thinking of new series to do without ever doing episodes of old series. I thought we could do a new one called Moments in Hearse-tory.
Yes, and what is that going to look like? What's the plan for Moments in Hearse-tory?
Yeah, I figured this one's going to be based pretty heavily off of the model of the Carsverse, that they didn't evolve from humans. It's not a continuation of humans, but a parallel, like identical universe to human society. Biggest evidence of that being World War II happened in the Carsverse. So I thought it'd be fun if we both came in with like 2 or 3 moments in history that would just be pretty wild as cars. Just like, man, this happened in our world. What if it was cars? That'd be weird.
Okay. All right. So what exactly? How do we prepare for this?
How do we prepare? I think we just independently choose, like, I think 3 moments. I don't know why I'm saying it as if we haven't done it already. We have both chosen 3 moments of human history, and we don't tell each other what they are. I don't know, in an attempt to keep it as a surprise. And we talk about them. We may not get to all of them, but if we don't, and this is in fact a series, then we'll do it at some point.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna flip the old Kachat coin to see who goes first, and oh, look, it's me. I'm going first. All right, so let's talk about the invention of the plane.
Yeah. This is the only one we know each other are doing, because John did a joke in his name of the service we used to record, and I was like, oh, I also did the Wright Brothers. So
All
we're
right.
both vaguely prepared for this one.
Okay, so the invention of the plane. If we're assuming that this world is just the same and history happened in the same way, how do we reconcile the fact that there was a point in time where 2 people who became famous for doing so invented a person?
Yeah, obviously I chose this one for the exact same reasons, but I think a very important part of this one is we have to establish, just for, and this can change based on whichever one, we're always loosey-goosey on this show, but are we assuming that vehicles lined up with their time period, you know? Like ancient history is like carts and chariots, modern history is cars, or are we assuming it's cars all the way down? What do you think?
Well, based on the premise that you introduced to me, I have to assume that we were going under the assumption that it's just cars exist throughout history.
Yeah.
All of history is cars. However, we do have evidence that that was not the intention.
Yeah, we do have some old shorts, some like things where Mater time travels and people are chariots, but those weren't made. But also in flashbacks, they're old timey cars.
And there
So
are wheels, just wheels.
yeah, just wheels were also in that same scrapped short or early version of Time Travel Mater. So it's hard to decide. I think again we can sort of honestly, if it's funnier to assume that they're carts and chariots and wheels, we can go with that. But I think for the most part, we should assume that it's cars all the way back.
Okay. So if we're assuming it's cars all the way back, I'm guessing that means we're assuming it's also planes all the way back.
Yeah, that's where this one gets rough.
Mm-hmm. Because if we're assuming that it was always cars, we could say that that just means that history and time started when cars.
When
So,
cars,
like,
yes.
just gonna throw this one out there because I'm so smart and this is definitely off the top of my dome and I'm not like trying to buy for time right now. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, since cars were credited to a Mr. Benz in 18.
Yeah, I googled when were cars invented, and Google said 1885 to 1886.
All right.
Sure, we'll go with that.
So, right around then, that's when history started. If we're
Maybe.
assuming that it's when cars started,
Yeah.
of course. Other than that, we could have the argument of, oh, yeah, it's chariots were cars and tires were cave cars. But I think we're just going to ignore all that. And we're just going to
For
go
now,
ahead
at
and
least.
say that all of human history is exactly the same, but with cars.
Yeah, including the pre-car invention. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like ancient history, they were just cars. Somehow, we'll figure it out.
All right. So, what are Orville and Wilbur famous for?
See, if I hadn't done my own research on this to also present it as one of mine, I would come back with maybe maybe they're just not famous. Maybe they're just bicycle inventors who didn't have a plane to invent. But while I was researching for this, I did come across the USS Kitty Hawk, which
Mm-hmm.
is in fact a boat that briefly appears in, I don't have it open here, but one of the I assume planes. Oh no, I actually remember. It's the one. It's actually in Moon Mater. It recovers Mater and Lightning after they do a crash landing in the ocean.
Okay.
Since the USS Kitty Hawk or Admiral Kitty Hawk, it's one of those two, was named after Kitty Hawk. That means Kitty Hawk is famous and like a very important spot. And Kitty Hawk, really, the only thing Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, I think, is known for is for the first flight
Mm-hmm. Due to its strong winds.
and Big Hill.
Yep.
There's Big Hill and
So,
those windy.
so that's an astounding amount of insight gained from such a minute detail of because we know that Kitty Hawk is famous, we have to assume that it's likely famous for the same reason, which means we have to assume that Orville and Wilbur did in fact do the thing.
But what? Okay, okay. Again,
But
I
what
prepared for this
was
too.
the thing?
Okay, there are two routes here.
Mm-hmm.
Either they just fully invented a type of person,
Mm-hmm.
or they didn't, and we have to come up with something else hugely important they did that also benefits from being on a very windy hill in North Carolina.
All right. So they can't have made a person.
But I think they might have, John, and I
Lucas, they
know,
can't have made a person.
I know, John. But what else? What else?
I think they were the first people to discover a way for cars to fly.
Okay, that does line up well with our car who can fly, we can never remember the name of. Franz, maybe from the first Planes movie.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they experimented and made a Franz,
I hope not.
but I am saying that we do see examples of cars flying, and
Yep.
perhaps that's it. They just found some way that eventually became why spies, like spy cars, are able to do what they're able to do. Like, we know that some cars are just able to fly for some reason, and maybe it's because of the Wright brothers.
And I mean, Mater just has an alien like ability to just do that. And I mean, that's Mater, so like all bets are off because it's Mater and Mater can do whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
But if I remember the alien Mater one, the alien doesn't give Mater the ability to fly, he teaches Mater how to use his already innate ability to fly. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, but also it could be said that Mater sees this being able to do it and just changes his own reality and
Of
alters
course.
his own composition to be able to.
Yeah, again, all bets are off with Tomater. We can't assume anything that's true for him is true for literally any other car,
Mm-hmm.
which is a shame because then we could assume so many things. But say
Yep.
la vie.
Okay. So they made a way for cars to fly that eventually becomes rockets attached to your undercarriage, I guess.
Yeah, it would have to still be technologically in line with the technology of the time, like the 1903 Wright Flyer,
Mm-hmm.
which A is just very funny to me because the 1903 Wright Flyer, one of the big reasons it worked so well is because they were able to make it super light.
Yep.
Uh, so I'm imagining basically they just hook some like ultralight wings to their body, so we don't make another sentient person. They don't like the engine is the car's engine if we're going down this route. Otherwise, they have to have made a person.
I have some things that might help.
Okay.
The reason the Wright Flyer was able to work is because it was able to generate enough lift based on its weight and speed. Essentially, the Wright Flyer, its whole thing was they needed to hill, they needed all that so that it could kind of glide. So there's a chance that what they invented was just a very strange wing system to attach to a car to give them the ability to generate enough lift to glide down a hill. And one way to do that is to have a very light setup, and the other is to go very fast.
Yeah.
So if he
Okay.
makes a similar setup, all the car has to do is go very fast.
That's true. I do. I really want because there's the if you've ever seen a picture because there are pictures from that. It's like one of the brothers like laying down on the flyer, and you just get the impression that like if the wind is too strong, it'll fully fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Have you
I know
seen
that
how much the wings will like flex during the breezes?
it's very
It's
spooky.
terrifying.
I need the image of a car getting onto just the 1903 Wright Flyer and just fully demolishing it.
Yeah.
I think what we're saying works for this. I think we have to at least explore a little bit that they made people. Like we can dip our toes in, and if we're like this can't be it, we can get out, but we can't fully discount it without looking
Okay.
at it.
So we do have the squishy bit theory.
Yeah, that's where I was going to.
So they invented a new body that people can exist in. They present their proposal to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer is just like, okay, we'll start making some of these, I guess.
What a buck wild. Can you imagine just like designing a new person and then just going to a pitch meeting with God?
Just being like, hey, I've got some ideas. I don't want to call them improvements because your designs are amazing, but what if people could fly? Lucas, not even that. What
Huh,
if
go
you went
ahead.
to that pitch meeting and then he said, yeah, that's good?
You know what? I never thought about that.
You're at
Which
a pitch
bonkers.
meeting for redesigning people with God, and God's like, you know what? I like your ideas. This I'm gonna incorporate this in the new batch.
I think that pitch meeting would both A really shore up my faith because I was literally talking with God, and B shake it so much that he was like, "Yeah, this is good. This is you're right.
You
I
know what?
should
Good
be
job.
doing this." Ooh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
We can't throw out the fact that we've seen planes be tiny pigeons.
Mm-hmm.
Like the pigeons are just tiny planes. They're just gosh.
What
Why would they name a ship the Kitty Hawk?
Lucas, what if
Yeah.
the pigeons are just babies?
Oh, and they're just wandering Paris
Yeah.
in flocks.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Sure. No, yeah, I don't have a retort. Yeah, perfect. It's wonderful. I mean, planes seem to have a slightly different society than the cars, so we don't know.
We don't see very many examples of families, so we can't assume that those tiny little creatures aren't just babies.
Yeah, but the pigeons, I think, are the biggest evidence that they didn't just invent a full new thing. At the very least, they may have invented new bodies for people based on birds, but like there were flying vehicles before 1903.
I mean, Lucas, what else is a plane but man's attempt to become a bird?
That's fair. Maybe it's less they invented a type of people and more they invented just a way to modify yourself, which is basically
They
what we were saying with the body thing anyway.
they did a reverse Iron Man and they took a cool thing and made it much bigger.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was two of mine, but I also came prepared with more than two.
That
So
was
that's
two of
something.
yours?
hmm The other one
Oh.
was, of course, the invention of car itself.
Oh, okay, that's fair. I'm going to go ahead and do the other one of mine that I'm worried might be one of yours. So
Okay.
I could say one of mine. And that is, of course, the Titanic.
Hmm.
Is that one of yours?
It's not.
Okay, cool. We've talked a little bit about the Titanic before. I think, if I remember right, because our favorite wiki poster, Lightning McQueen, wanted the Titanic to appear in a flashback in the Cars 3 in his wish list for Cars 3, and we were like, "What? That's the most bonkers thing I've ever heard. I love Lightning McQueen."
hmm
And we've also talked a little bit about cruise ships. So we've covered some ground with this, but I really want to dive in on this person who died. This just person who died, and also a lot of people on him died.
That's part of the really upsetting nature of all of this is that they were inside of a person who was torn open and started slowly drowning and bleeding out, and they were just running around on top of and inside of him, trying to get to safety by getting into smaller people
Yeah,
so
that's
that they
that's
won't
coming up.
drown.
But there weren't enough smaller people lifeboats. They
And the
didn't.
ones they had were used very inefficiently.
They were understaffed. And if we're going right into it, a car fills a lot of a lifeboat.
All right, are we assuming the Titanic is the same size as the Titanic?
I feel like we have to, but that would also partially solve the lifeboat issue I just came up with because there would just be less space in general for
hmm
passengers.
A lot less people would have died because a lot less people would have fit on the boat.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it wasn't like it was still a huge tragedy, but maybe it wasn't like as big of one, maybe.
See, I have to assume that in general, the population is much smaller in this Cars world.
Yeah.
Whether or not everything plays out in a similar fashion and history is basically the same, but with cars, we have to assume that because cars take up more space than people, that if buildings are roughly the same size but built for cars, that means there are just less car people.
Yeah, and I think a good little bit of evidence in this is Radiator Springs itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously it's like a dying town, which
Mm-hmm.
is a huge part of it. But even like small towns, there are towns that have like 10 people in them. But Radiator Springs has like 10 people in them, and doesn't feel as small as those kind of small towns.
Mm-hmm. But also, it's a small town in the sense that it's a very abandoned town. A
That's
lot
fair.
of people have moved away.
I still think even at its heyday, like I don't know, I think just looking at the current population, even if a huge portion of it had moved away, is some amount of evidence of a smaller overall population density.
All right, so let's talk about this. What is Radiator Springs?
The setting of Cars One, a city.
Okay, so Radiator Springs is a town. It has to be between 20 and 30,000 people.
Sure,
Radiator Springs is not 20 to 30,000 people.
that's true. I think I don't. I can't. I'm not going to remember all the citizens, but I think they're like 15 tops. Like that's a healthy estimate too.
In its heyday, I would say maybe at most 100.
Yeah, I know we've looked. I remember doing this in like some super early episodes, but I remember looking at maybe it's like similar to just amount of cars there are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
and there are a little more than a billion cars, which would be like what, a seventh, an eighth of the size of our current population,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know, feels right enough, right enough to say. Which I mean would again go back. I said since not as many people were on the boat, maybe it wouldn't be as big of a tragedy, but comparatively, it'd be probably the same amount of tragedy
Mm-hmm.
based on like number of deaths versus population of the world. Which I don't know. It's not how we look at tragedies really, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's if there are 8 billion people and 80 people die in a world where there's only 1 billion, would it be the same for just 10 people to die?
Maybe I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
I'm gonna Google how many people died on the Titanic.
a lot.
Yeah, 1,500 people.
Oh boy, that's a Cars City right there.
No, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Mm. Okay, and that's your very not fun fact of the day.
Yeah, a lot of people died. Uh, I don't know. I want to explore what it's like to be a sentient person who's. I want to explore the Titanic's sentient last moments, and that's pretty like dark.
Okay,
But
a lot of the blame lies within the crew because they
yeah,
ignored calls for help. They steered in a way that was the least advantageous, and there were also internal problems. There were just a lot of things going on that led to this thing happening in the way that it did. And I'm curious as to what that would mean for the Titanic being a person.
yeah, I
Does
think
this Titanic person control themselves?
I think that's where we got to start.
Was this person being steered?
My first instinct, with nothing to back it up, is the Titanic can steer itself or someone else can steer it. At like both are possible.
All right, let's assume it's nighttime. The Titanic was sleeping,
Yeah.
not steering itself. Still means it was the captain. What do we do about the internal problems where there was just a massive fire going on?
I mean, maybe he was just sick.
Maybe he had some tumbly rumblies?
Yeah, or something more serious than that. Or
I
yeah,
mean, indigestion in a vehicle that massive is very serious.
that's fair. Okay, yeah,
Oh boy. Okay, so maybe it was just some tummy rumblies for a vehicle that is absolutely massive, meaning just giant fires burning through its stomach. The captain ignored calls for help and, hey, don't go there. The storms are coming. There's ice and whatnot. How awful is it to think about the fact that the way this happened is they steered instead of going into the iceberg directly, which would have broken up the ice, they
yeah,
turned and scraped along its side, meaning that this
tore the entire
person
side of it.
this person had their stomach ripped open and everything just kind of fell out.
Yeah, a big part of the Titanic and why it was hailed as unsinkable, which remind me, now that I've said that, to go back to something, is that it had these multiple chambers that were
Mm-hmm.
sealed from each other. And the reason why scraping it was so bad is water got into all or most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And man, just the idea of a sentient person, giant person, that giant gash. Ugh, oh man, it's dark. But
Mm-hmm.
now that I've said that, I do want to go back and do the question from Liz.
Give me that question
This
from
is not how
Liz.
this works. Yeah, sorry. We both of our significant others are named Liz. They ask us questions. That's the whole joke. But this week is fun because my girlfriend Liz is a huge, like, you know how you have like kid obsessions when you're a kid, you're like obsessed with like a moment in history or dinosaurs or something like that,
Sure.
or like robots or Pokemon or something. Like you just get really into something as a kid.
Yeah, and that definitely goes away when you get older.
No, yeah,
Definitely.
like I still have.
Lucas, I'm building a 15-foot tall robot in my basement as we speak.
Yeah, and Liz has a poster, a giant poster with the front page of the New York Times after the Titanic sank. They don't go away. But that is to say, one of Liz's kid obsessions was the Titanic, so she was very excited about us talking about this.
All right.
Uh, but her question was, the Titanic was hailed as unsinkable. What does that mean for a person? If it's a person, what does that mean? Like, did they think this boat was immortal? Was it fully just like a very arrogant boat? Was it man-made or reinforced somehow in a similar way to the real-life Titanic? Why did they think the Titanic was unsinkable in this universe?
Do you want the easy answer?
Yes.
Captain America.
Sure. The obvious answer. Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm. Captain America. That's the answer right there.
They super soldiered the Titanic, is what you're saying.
Yep. And as you may well know, Captain America, phenomenal, super soldier, all that jazz, dies from a bullet. One bullet, kill him. Kill him right dead.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good part of the answer is he wasn't unsinkable.
But like the implication of calling him unsinkable is the same implication of, oh, we have spent millions on this program to make the best soldier. He is the peak of the human condition. He's not bulletproof or anything. He's the best soldier, but you just stab him, he'll die. And then everyone hears that and they think, okay, he's Captain America. Nothing can kill him. And then, like, you got one scientist like, I mean, if he holds the shield, he's protected from bullets, but that doesn't mean he's completely safe. You could just
He's
you stab him.
harder to kill, certainly.
He's very, very hard to kill in certain ways,
Yeah.
but like you could kill him.
Yeah, that's basically where I was getting. I wanted to discuss the thought that maybe the Titanic thought it was immortal and just was wrong.
He's a Herculean figure. He's a demigod.
Achilles. He's got the heel.
He is Achilles. He's got the the Achilles
hole.
Underbelly.
No, John, Achilles hole.
Yep.
John.
Yeah. The Achilles hole.
Oh, that's, man. We never get to make good jokes on this podcast. I'm so proud of us.
Oh, that's real good.
Oh, okay. Cool. I love it. Lifeboats are weird.
He's just got like 1,000 buddies that hang out with him.
He certainly doesn't have 1,000. That's like a important point.
He's got like 63 buddies that hang out with him.
How many lifeboats on the Titanic? 16. Woof.
Are you serious? There were 16?
A mere 16 boats plus 4 collapsibles could accommodate just 1,178 people. So they're like big, but still, gosh.
Oh boy.
Like, I obviously knew that was a problem with the Titanic, famously, but man, that's not a lot.
I actually listened to another podcast that is from an acting friend, and they had an entire episode on the Titanic, and they were talking about how they actually met their standard. They were even doing better than the standard.
Yeah,
they only needed to have enough lifeboats for maybe 60% of their passengers.
No, yeah, like it. I mean, it was, White Star Line's fault to a degree, but like regulations were bad back in the day.
Turns out, for some reason, the regulations don't account for all of the people.
Regulations are a good thing. They save lives. But yeah, so he's got 16 friends and 4 collapsible friends.
Oh.
No, yeah. I know in modern cruise ships, lifeboats typically have some motorization, but I assume on the Titanic they did not. They just were to float. So do we think they're animals? Do we think they're sentient? They're alive. There's no way we're going to get past that they're alive, but are they people, sentient?
The collapsible ones for sure cannot be, because that's too upsetting.
Yeah, we cannot. We fully cannot do this.
So collapsible people, we don't have to worry about it. The other ones, I'm gonna guess they're people. He's just got 16 buds that ride attached to him.
Man, obviously that's the point of why we're talking about it, but that would suck a lot.
Mm-hmm. Unless you were, I don't know, a giant, perhaps a Hamlet-backed giant, or Goliath, if you will.
Sure.
It's the Magic the Gathering card. It's in my Krenko deck.
Okay, sure, man. I know about Magic the Gathering, and even I didn't get that. Whatever.
It's a giant with just like a small Hamlet on his back, maybe 20 or 16 of his friends that live on his back.
That's fair. But like his friends, gosh, why have you made us make this a comparison to a Magic the Gathering card? His friends get to like move and live. They're not like, people who were made to be in the water who are, pulled up and don't get to move and just sit there and hope their big friend doesn't die. But their whole purpose is if he dies.
All right. But Lucas,
Okay.
what if you were to be paid to hang out with your friends and to
And
just
hope they don't die.
to sit still and ride? Like, oh, my job is to just sit and talk with my friends and hope my friend doesn't die.
and hope that I don't have to do any work. I
And hope
mean,
that my existence is meaningless and I don't have to watch my friend have his Achilles hole be torn open in front of me.
slowly sink to the bottom of the ocean. Oh man, like pretty much everyone who fell in the water on the Titanic died because of hypothermia, etc. Those cars, if they were in the water, even less of a chance.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
guess it's possible they could get like flotation devices, like life vests, but
Lucas, Rose was on just a hunk of flesh.
that is very bad.
Rose was just on like a rib floating in the ocean, and Jack couldn't fit on the rib, so Jack sunk to the bottom.
Like a very, again, their cars, they gotta be a very big rib for Rose to
Hmm.
survive on it.
A very large rib from this unsinkable Achilles. Okay, so Jack was definitely a forklift, right?
Yeah, I mean, he in the third class, he's seen as lesser, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Also had the hands of an artist.
yeah, yeah. That's a point I didn't think about. Yeah, he could draw at all.
Yep. Okay. Let's stop talking about a tragedy
Yeah,
and move on to Blockbuster.
blockbuster video is one of yours.
The term blockbuster, actually.
Okay, okay. That's
So,
oh, real quick. Do you mind if I? Oh, this works for this one too. This works better. Speaking of blockbuster, let's go to the accidentally even more better wiki quote of the day week.
give me that James Cameron of the week.
Sure. This week we're going over to worldofcarsdriving.fandom.com/wiki/boat_Reynolds. I was just gonna the Titanic doesn't canonically exist in the Carsverse, so I just did a boat one. But it's
Okay.
better because he's an actor and you're doing blockbuster. This one's quick. It's Burt Reynolds. If you don't get the joke, the actor Burt Reynolds, that's who it is. But he appears for a second in Planes, Fire and Rescue, which is weird. But if we go down to the trivia section, we've got he is a spoof of the film actor, director, and producer Burt Reynolds, with the carified film Best Little Boathouse in Texas being a spoof of one of his movies. Do you know what the movie is that's a spoof of, John?
Is it Best Little House in Texas?
It's the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Planes made a joke about whorehouses in
Nope,
their
that
movie for children.
no, they fully did. Which A is wild. B, I really like that in this on the Cars wiki here. They just didn't want to say whorehouse, so they said it's a spoof of one of them. You can figure it out. We don't want to put whorehouse on this children's movie wiki.
Oh boy. Yep. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, that's all I needed. You go ahead with why Blockbuster is weird.
All right. So, a blockbuster is a film that is so exciting and so looked forward to that people line around the block just to get into the movie theater.
Huh.
So, this brings up just a lot of questions. First off, I say this in our history episode because it's like throughout history, there's a point in time where movies just widely exploded in popularity, and that's right
Mhm.
about now. By now, I mean when blockbusters became a thing, because of course that's why they called them blockbusters, is because they were so popular they couldn't get everyone in the building. How much worse is that going to be with the cars, with cars and planes and boat?
Huh. The and planes and boats is an important part of that.
See, you could just say drive-in for cars, and maybe even planes. What about boat?
I mean, I guess you could assume they build some infrastructure for the boats, where there's a big screen and it has to be at night, much like a drive-in, and just one of the boats has the projector on them. But boats are can be very big, is the issue.
Mm-hmm. A 55-inch TV, to me, is very large. To a boat, that is microscopic.
Yeah, especially when you look at like aircraft carriers and stuff, where they're even like their eyes are like far back on their being, so they're even
Mm-hmm.
further away from it, and maybe just I guess their nose and mouth just block it from them
Yep.
potentially.
Because, like, even if you go with movie theater screen, you get like a 22-foot wide screen. If your eyes are 10 by 5, then okay, it's twice the size of your eyes, maybe.
Twice. That's. I mean that's not even phone.
That's not even phone. That's maybe, I don't know, like a Blackberry phone screen from
Yeah,
15 years ago.
I remember on like the old iPod, I had an iPod video at some point, and I had like I didn't have a movie on there because that's even then that seemed stupid. But I remember I saved like a music video on there, and I guess just watched it sometimes. I needed it. Why did I do that? Whatever. Why did anyone do anything before smartphones? Uh,
Lucas, one of my biggest purchases when I was around the age of 13 and had a job mowing lawns was I got me one of the third generation iPods. And I had Kill Bill on it for some reason.
Did did you at any point in your life sit down and watch the movie start to end on your iPod? This is so important.
I, at one point in time, noticed that it was on there for some reason. I was on the toilet and I maybe watched a minute before I was like, this is dumb.
It's almost like they're built. The movies are made to be on giant screens, not on tiny ones. But
Like,
I mean, the fact that that was a selling point of the iPod video and whatever iPod you had, I mean, you can technically watch a movie like that.
you can.
It
You
sucks.
should not.
It's terrible, but like for some people, they did some market research that showed someone will pay for it. And if that's your only option, maybe I mean
If I no longer was able to watch any movie other than through a screen that was maybe a 2 by 2 inch square, then I would eventually decide, okay, I'm going to start doing this. But
and
it
I
would
mean
take a while.
yeah, but I mean you couldn't like read a book or watch TV, that'd be the same situation. I guess go to a play, but I don't know, man. Listen to music would maybe be the same. That you could do that, but you would have. It's not just you couldn't watch movies; you couldn't experience media.
You couldn't experience anything that required a screen with any amount of comfort.
Yeah, I know. We talked just last week, and again, I've noticed a theme of mentioning things from last week a lot recently. But gosh, poor boats.
Oh boy.
Just poor boats, right?
Yeah, poor boats.
I did find out while I was looking for a boat fact for the wiki quote that the Dwight Eisenhower is an admiral, like he's high up in the Navy, which is I don't know, maybe good. Like his silly hat we made fun of was an admiral's hat.
It feels like one of those things where you kind of have to give him the promotion because what else is he gonna do? And
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like anyone has any options at that point. How many of the vehicle that he is are there?
not there can't be a lot. There just
There really
can't be a
can't.
lot of them. I think when the boats category on World of Cars fandom is pretty slim, and that's all boats, not even large military boats.
Okay, so blockbusters. There's more to it than just boats can't watch movies. There's also just the idea of historically, you have to think, oh, what are the movies
Historically,
that we've historically
thank you.
historically
Thank you.
We got to think about, okay, what was Jaws like? What was Indiana Jones like?
I mean,
We're
that's
gonna
a
need a
full.
bigger me.
Yeah, that's a full other series. If we
Lucas,
want.
what was in the bed in The Godfather?
Okay, I mean, we've recently said horses were trailers, so I
Okay,
guess just like the hitch.
so they, oh, I don't know.
Also,
Gotta.
beds.
Oh boy,
What was in the where?
what was in the what, and how did it get there? How was it removed? Would that be considered cruelty?
I would say that yes, because it has to be alive to be considered a similar act. You know,
Okay, so they killed a horse that was a trailer
sure.
by cutting off its hitch, which was its head for some reason,
Following you
and, and they put it in the man's room beside him while he was sleeping.
somehow. Yep, it checks out.
What's his room? Is his room a garage?
I mean, we've talked about living spaces. I mean, Cozy Cone. See, like lightning wasn't. This is a microtel. This is like the Japanese like tiny
Hmm.
hotels. He is like, this is normal, and I am fine with this. And he
But
sleeps
it is
on mat.
described as cozy, which
Yeah,
implies that it's like a smaller type situation.
yeah. Like it's not. It's not necessarily like normal, but it's not like abnormal either.
Hmm.
You know.
Like it's something you'd see, but it's also like a bit of a, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess just his room where he sleeps is where the trailer hitch was. Also, like cutting off a horse's head takes some work. Cutting off a trailer hitch takes some work, I feel like.
And one of the startling things is going to be the horse's blood.
Oil, I
Why would it be
guess.
leaking oil? It's just a hitch.
I mean, and if it's just a trailer with no engine, it doesn't have any fluids. Uh, maybe
And
just
Lucas, I got to
grease.
quote some great movies here.
Yeah,
Pretend you're a car. Do you bleed?
no.
You don't bleed? Okay, okay.
I oil,
You oil? You leak
you
oil?
oil.
Do you oil? I mean, that would be an action though, like you're oiling something else.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
know, man.
so the trailer grease or oil is all over him, I guess. What about Star Wars? I want to say Car Wars, but that would just be wars.
Star Cars. No, that's worse. Uh, I mean, are you asking about the plot, or are we fully focusing on making the pun right now?
I'm asking about what would that be like? Would we see a bunch of cars in space riding inside of other vehicles that are people?
Yeah, the vehicles are a very big, important part of the Star Wars because
Hmm.
that's where they do the wars. Uh,
When the
yeah, I
Death Star
guess.
explodes, was that a person?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
if like the Dwight Eisenhower can be a person, then I don't see there being an upper limit.
all right. Dwight Eisenhower's a person. The Death Star was a person. That's no moon. That's a man.
That's just like a guy.
That's just a dude. Hello.
What if he was
And
nice? He can't have been nice. He exterminated populations.
hey, he's the size of a moon. If he sneezes, he's gonna kill someone.
Yeah, but if that's your existence, you
And
gotta
we
take
already said that
precautions.
the Titanic was a person, and a bunch of people died because of the captain steering the Titanic rather than the Titanic.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's it's good old Toph,
Say Toph, like from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
hmm or like
How is it
Moff
like
Tarkin,
Toph?
Moff
Oh,
Tarkin,
okay,
Grand Moff Tarkin.
got it. Uh,
So yeah, he's responsible for forcing this person to sneeze a beam of destructive energy into a planet, destroying it.
I mean, I'm willing to believe that he was maybe forced to do it. That would actually line up well. That I think that would line up well with him being easily destructible by some easily weird exploitable thing. Maybe it's not explained by Rogue One in this one, by it being designed that way. Maybe he opened up those ports. He said, "Listen, you gotta pull the trigger, Piglet." That's a weird meme no one's seen. But
Lucas, I hope everyone has seen that one.
just Google "pull the trigger, Piglet." Uh, but he just wanted. He said, "You gotta come kill me."
Oh boy. Do you think
Speaking,
that he was like an extremely powerful force user?
Force in general is weird,
Yep.
but I guess because like it's similar enough to Force Lightning, his beam.
Mm-hmm.
That
Because
maybe
you
all
think
ships
about it.
that can shoot lasers are
The
Force
force,
users.
your force power is based on how many midichlorians you have.
Ugh.
And if you've got two people with a ton of midichlorians inside of you, don't you have their midichlorians inside of you?
Hmm. I don't know, man. That's a lot.
Which makes me think, what if, like, that giant sandworm had just eaten Ray? Do you think he would have gotten Ray's force powers?
Woof. Woof. Uh,
If I were
I
to
don't.
eat a Jedi, Lucas, would I get force powers?
The eternal question. They're always getting their hands cut off. So maybe you just eat those. They gotta have some. They'll take a while.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
You just gotta eat their hands. Eat all of
logically,
the hands.
I want to say no because I don't think that would be how it works. But from a we're doing a comedy podcast perspective, absolutely. Just eat a Jedi, you get their midichlorians.
I'm gonna probably exaggerate the number, but apparently in some of the supplementary material for Star Wars, there's like a diagram that demonstrates that there are about 46 techniques for cutting off extremities.
That's too many.
Yep.
Quite frankly, it's too many.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought of a very niche movie moment also.
Let's do it.
Have you heard of like it may be like a myth, but the story of right when moving pictures were becoming a thing, people were watching the screen and there was a movie in which a train was coming towards the screen.
And
Uh
everyone was terrified.
and everyone freaked out and we're like we're gonna die. Uh so in this universe it's just like a big guy running at the screen, right?
Lucas, it's just Get Out.
Yeah, it's that exact moment from Get Out.
It's a
That's
dude running at you from the dark, and all of a sudden, there's a person right there, and you're gonna get hit by him. Except this time, the person weighs, I don't know, 40,000 pounds.
yeah, and I mean that moment from Get Out was designed to be deeply unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I get it, and it was deeply unsettling.
It was spooky.
So, yeah, the filmmakers were just ahead of their time. They were making Get Out way back in the day.
All right. Okay.
It's one of our weirder assertions we've made.
All right. So, do we want to move on to either of my other three prepared ones? That's right. I prepared, I believe, six.
Wow, I've got one more that, like, honestly, I don't know a ton about the subject, and I kind of doubt you do either. So there are just a few bits from it I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could fit in like our limited amount of time we have left. Okay. Again, I don't know a lot about the French Revolution, but there is one very famous bit from it that I would like to discuss. And that is very famously during, I think it was called the Reign of Terror, they just cut off a lot of heads with a
Lucas, how did you
guillotine.
not bring this up when I was talking about the horse head?
No, I know. That's why I wanted to do this one within this episode.
Okay. So, yeah.
How do they cut off a car's head? It's really the full reason I wanted to bring up the French Revolution. And the French Revolution is ultra complex. I'm sure there's a ton we could talk about, but John and I don't know a lot about the French Revolution, so we're going to talk about beheadings.
We're going to talk about, cutting
And
off half of the body of this thing.
yeah, that's just their half of, like, they just bisect them, right?
Yep. Okay, so the question isn't how do you cut off their heads, it's which part is their head?
Yeah, how do you only cut off their head?
Because if you only want to cut off their head and you don't want to cut off what I assume is like their shoulder to arm, then you have to cut it in just the worst way possible because You have
You
to
got to do like
cut
a
from
sharp 90-degree turn in the middle of it.
you gotta cut from underneath their mouth, scoop, and then like get above the tires, and I'm guessing probably like through midway the doors, and then get to the back windshield, and then it's this weird curve where you're just like scooping off a face of a person.
Man, guillotines would be wild. Obviously, for the stuff you just said of how they have to like make several turns in the middle of the car, but also they got to be like rocket powered or something,
All
right?
right, here's my proposal.
Got it.
They cut from just underneath the mouth, straight line to the back.
So it's okay.
Everything above just under the mouth and like everything above that is head and
Okay,
everything below that is body.
so they bisect them horizontally, not vertically. Okay, that's very interesting.
Which is, yes, pretty much the longest straight line you could possibly have through the car.
But I mean, I think it lines up with what would be the head of a car. I don't
Hmm.
think we can, which also gives the very funny visual of them having to stand the cars up. If we still have it work like how it drops, to have them stood up on their bumper and held there somehow.
Oh, Lucas, you have reminded me of the other one that I didn't have a tab for.
Sure.
The other historical event that is very reminiscent of having to hang this car up for torture slash killing. And that was, of course, the Carsifixion.
Oh no, that's Jesus is a fool half episode later. We cannot get into Jesus right now.
Okay, so, um, all right. What are they going to use to decapitate
Thank
the
you.
vehicles?
I mean, the guillotine is so synonymous with the French Revolution that I think it has to be recognizable as a guillotine, just a bonkers one somehow, you know?
It's all right. What if it's a guillotine, but it is intentionally designed to like loop and slide, which also means it has to be insanely large and insanely heavy.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, this is messed up, but what if it needs that extra speed and torque? So instead of just letting gravity do the work, they hook up like a pulley system and just have a car start going.
It's like being drawn and quartered.
Yeah, but it's like a combination of that almost.
Hmm. Okay, so Lucas, what I was thinking was a similar vein, but it was instead, what if it's like, okay, so you've got the headsman, the guy who uses an axe to cut off heads. What
Mhm.
if it's a combination of those two positions and it's a person jumps onto the chopping block to force it down into the other person?
I was thinking about just adding a huge weight on top of the guillotine to make it go through like a massive weight, and I guess that would combine those two ideas
Is that the headsman is a car that wears that creepy like mask thing. Lucas, how do you
somehow.
hang a car?
No, yeah, that's the natural evolution here.
Where's the neck?
We try to do these one-to-one things, and I think we've somehow gotten guillotine. I don't know if we're going to get noose, man.
Because we've seen cars like coughing, so
Yeah, they
breathing
have
problems
airways.
exist, but there's no neck. There is no neck.
It's like trying to hang Iron Man. He's made of metal. You can't do it.
It's like trying to hang Modoc.
Ugh, you'd have to get inside to the squishy bit to do it, which is just grotesque.
So they peel back the
Ugh.
exosuit, they rip open your body so they can get to your esophagus to wrap a rope around that just to drop you and probably completely cut you in half anyway.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. This is all of them are obviously pretty body horror grotesque. This has been one of our more grotesque ones in a while.
What are you talking about, Lucas? We've talked about uh, slowly hacking at a horse trailer's neck/head, uh, decapitation by a bisection of body the long way, ripping open your flesh to just like squeeze your squishy esophagus,
Don't
and
forget the Titanic slowly drowning after being
slowly
its full
drowning
side being
after its
torn out.
entrails just pouring out onto a bunch of people. Lucas, I had a bad thought just now.
That's what those are the moneymakers, John. Hit me.
A lot less people might have died in that situation, and do you want to know why?
I guess.
You wouldn't have died from hypothermia because his entrails would have been warm, and he's so massive that I have to assume he would have significantly warmed the temperature of the water.
Ugh. Yeah, that's a bad thought, man.
It's like that good old Star Wars joke, what's the internal temperature of a tauntaun? About lukewarm.
Ah, yeah, I've heard that before. That's a shame. I thought you were going to go with the cars are better insulated, so they would die slower. They would drown instead of die from hypothermia at the bottom of the ocean, which is also grotesque. We should stop.
Yep.
We should stop.
But as long as we're not stopping,
Sure,
let's
sure,
talk
sure.
about. So when you hang someone, a lot of the like death comes from breaking their neck.
Sure.
I imagine that's just what it's gonna be. It's not gonna be you suffocate. You're just gonna break your neck in the Cars world.
I feel like you just get crushed.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, yeah, like your exoskeleton gets crushed into the squishy bit is how it would have to work.
Yeah. All right. So that's the last terrible, grotesque thing we were gonna say for the week, I guess.
Yeah, that's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening to it. Let us know if you liked this. I liked it, but I understand if you didn't. And if you did like it, this is another thing that would be easy to submit ideas for, much like origin stories.
Which we are working on a fan suggestion.
Yeah, well, next I think next week we will be doing a fan suggested origin story. So those are super easy to submit. Just movies you think would be a good prequel to Cars, or now just historical events that you want us to make grotesque in the Cars world. You can do that. Here we go. At our email, which is thekachat@gmail.com, or on our Twitter. You can tweet at us or DM us at thekachat. I don't think I said thank you for listening, so I'm doing that now. I usually do it before this, but thank you for listening. It was a cool thing you did. Now, John says stuff.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I think that's it.
Yeah, tell some
Don't worry
people
about telling everyone.
This podcast.
Don't worry about it.
This week, don't tell anybody.
Just don't, because you know what? They don't deserve it.
Yeah, this week we want to have our worst numbers ever. If we have good numbers, we're gonna be mad.
If we get more than 20,000 downloads,
thank you.
I'm gonna be so mad.
Yeah, if we soar to number 1 on iTunes, ooh, I'll be mad.
I'm gonna be so peeved.
And I've been seeing some people leaving us reviews on iTunes lately. And man, I'm not going to make a joke. It's super cool. Thank you for doing that. If you haven't done it, it'd be cool if you did. No pressure. That's the end of the episode. I've been Lucas Southworth.
And I've been John Bishop. And until next time, remember to float like a Cadillac.
And sting like a beamer. Duh. Gosh.
Could you?
I don't know why we decided to be angry at the audience here at the end. That's always a good move.